Hello fellow crafters and welcome to maxdmcrafting. For those of you who are loyal followers of the channel, this may be a little redundant, but I think it's important to introduce one of my major works to newcomers. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you my White Rock Castle. This monumental work required a long period of construction and was born from the mashup of the Warhammer Fortress. We are talking about the 1998 edition, The Siege of Castle Ravensburg, with the legendary Fortified Manor, of which I had a copy treated badly with a truly disgusting paint job, and to which I wanted to give new life. These days there is more and more talk about old world, and honestly, it doesn't seem that old to me. It seems like a short time has passed to me, but let's face reality. More than 20 years means at least one, if not two generations of players for whom, yes, I'm old. Here I point out how I mercilessly dismembered the Fortified Manor. You can see the main house, the separate element, together with two standard bearing griffins, the beautiful, richly detailed manor tower, part of the surrounding walls with one of the statues, and finally the connecting element between the house and the tower, extensively customized and camouflaged elsewhere. The key of this project is not to rebuild a fortified manor, which I will certainly try soon, but rather to recreate the mixed combination I used in White Rock Castle. I always prefer to refer to pieces I have in possession and create constructions that are as close as possible to these dimensions. I like to give a certain curvature to the roofs of my fantasy houses. I make a couple of parallel lines about 5-6 mm apart and use this distance to create an even curvature of the roof. To create the door, I used a template. I gave it a Gothic pointed arch shape to standardize this structure with the rest of the keep. Creating doors is always an extremely fun activity. In just a few steps, it allows us to create an element with a strong personality for our building. I have dozens of tutorials on how to make doors and a whole series on the channel, so you are covered on this topic if you need it. For the plaster of medieval buildings, there are different techniques. I opt for a massive texture of XPS foam rather than covering it with plaster or stucco. The result is effective and, with the addition of cracks and exposed bricks, decidedly fantastic. The piece is decorated with pieces of costume jewelry and remnants, and it's then completed with the positioning of the various support beams. The two free sides of the building host two clones of the windows of the Warhammer Fortress, as well as two buttresses, to which I will attack 4 statues, 2 on each side, as in the ancient tradition of the Fortified Manor. The construction of the tower is given by the union of XPS foam sculpture techniques with the cloning technique of raising pieces using silicone molds. This topic is also fully covered on the channel if you are interested. The construction of a square-based tower can be extremely long and frustrating if it is not approached with the right technique. Here you see how I create the 4 sides of the tower so that they fit perfectly into a structure that can stay together even without glue. For this technique, I recommend you watch my video on building the watchtower in old Warhammer Fantasy style. Laces and maculations, I used my own clones. Keep in mind that each of these resin pieces was first sculpted in XPS foam. Once assembled, here's where this build will sit on top of the keep. This technique for creating strips of tiles in 28mm scale requires a very quick use of the proxen. First, we sink the wire a few millimeters into a piece of foam, the length of our roof. The distance between these lines does not have to be constant and should vary between a couple of millimeters minimum to about 4 or 5 millimeters maximum. This is the most important step. We have to tap on the hot wire. The side is the one we entered for the lines above, and I recommend 2 steps. The first consists in bringing the support of the proxen closer to the wire, almost until it touches it. In this way we will obtain a rich and shallow texture on the entire side. The second step consists in moving the wire support away by 1 or 2 millimeters and tapping only in some small areas of the piece. This will create diversity in the length of the tiles. Now, using a metal brush, we are going to scratch the surface of the tiles. Once this is done, we can go to the proxen and cut out the first strip with a thickness of approximately 1-2 millimeters. Once the strip has been cut, we repeat the step with the brush, and then we cut another strip and so on until we reach a sufficient quantity of tile strips. You see that in the meantime I created the support for the tiles with 2 thin pieces of XPS foam, which took on the characteristic curvature of the roof. The dormer window you see is a clone of the one in the Fortified Manor. These strips all have the same sequence of tiles. Simply break them and reverse every other line to obtain a random and satisfying effect. The laying of the tiles really varies according to taste. For fantasy buildings, I prefer to give a confused and disjoint look, as you see here. Come here so we can have a better and closer look to this beauty. Come. First of all, I have buttresses on all sides. This is the top with an edge. Here we have the 4 statues, 2 on each side. A unicorn here. More symbols. Another statue here. Now it's time to paint this beauty. I will start with some priming, a special mixture. I will use water, acrylic black paint, a little bit of glue, and baking soda. This is like, a decoupage technique. It helps a lot to increase the texture and also to make the piece very, very hard and strong. Let's crack on. I'm gonna let it dry upside down, so all the splashes, the black splashes, will be in the right position, since we assume that the light will hit the piece from top down. This is a nice trick, so you can basically, put your pieces upside down when you wash it, and then the right position will be taken by the paint. Drying time.
Okay guys, this is it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe the channel. Till next time, happy crafting!